Danielle, 22 years old, never expected to be betrayed by the very person who once looked her in the eyes and made her believe that soulmates were real. I had always been skeptical about the whole perfect relationship thing. I had been through enough short-lived flings, half-baked romances, and painfully awkward breakups to know that love was rarely ever easy. But then I met Travis. He was 25, lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and had that quiet, magnetic charm that just pulled me in. The kind of guy who opened doors without being performative, who remembered my coffee order down to the oat milk and 2 pumps of vanilla, who sat through my rants about coworkers and listened like each word was a treasure. We met in the spring, at a street art festival near the Battery. He said my laugh was the first thing that caught his attention. He bought me kettle corn, and we sat on a bench overlooking the water talking about everything from music to childhood traumas. I had no defenses left by the end of that day. By month 3, I was head over heels. By month 6, we had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment together just outside downtown. It was supposed to be temporary until we found something bigger. I painted the walls cream and hung eucalyptus in the bathroom. He installed open wooden shelves in the kitchen because I said I liked the ones I had seen on Pinterest. It felt like a home built from trust. Our life looked like something out of a perfectly staged Instagram reel. Morning coffees on the porch. Movie nights with takeout from our favorite Thai spot. Random weekend trips to Savannah or Asheville. My parents adored him. My friends constantly reminded me how lucky I was to have found someone so stable. For once, I let myself believe in something lasting. I started researching wedding venues. Secretly. I had a Pinterest board filled with dresses, rings, honeymoon ideas. I thought I had finally won the cosmic relationship lottery. I had no idea I was living in the calm before a storm so violent it would rip the floor out from under me. It was a Sunday afternoon in late April. The kind where the windows are open and the breeze smells like blooming magnolias. Travis had just finished a run and was in the shower. His phone rang and buzzed across the countertop. I answered without thinking, assuming it was one of his friends. I told the guy on the other end that Travis would call him back soon, hung up, and that should have been the end of it. But then the name Mom popped up with a new message. I paused. My stomach flipped a little. Maybe she could not reach him. So I opened the message with good intentions, planning to let her know he was in the shower. What I saw drained every drop of warmth from my body. It was not his mother. Not unless mothers send suggestive selfies in lace lingerie. Not unless mothers text things like "last night was unreal" and "I cannot wait to taste you again." My hands were trembling as I scrolled upward. The messages did not stop. They went back 8 months. 8 month of lies. This mom was a woman named Vanessa. I found her real name after seeing a message she sent with her Cash App ID. She was older than me, maybe 26, 27, gorgeous, confident, and from what I could tell, had no idea I existed. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood frozen in a silence so loud it made my ears ring. When Travis walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, whistling like the world was fine, I snapped. I slapped him across the face with so much force the sting reverberated through my arm. I told him I knew. That I saw his messages to his mother. He blinked twice, said nothing, and then in the coldest tone I had ever heard, told me to pack my things and go. No apology. No shame. No explanation. Just the chilling calm of a man who had gotten away with too much for too long. I packed my life into duffel bags while he sat on the couch texting like nothing had happened. When I left, I did not look back. I blocked him on everything. I changed my number. I deleted every picture, every video, every shared document, every trace of him from my devices. I cut through our past like it was a tumor. My parents were stunned. They kept asking why we broke up, and I just told them he was not who we thought he was. The first few weeks were brutal. I cried into my pillow, into coffee mugs, into the arms of my best friend on her couch. But eventually, the tears stopped. My skin got thicker. I started taking boxing classes. I got a better job. I moved into a sunlit studio apartment in downtown Charlotte and slowly, piece by piece, started rebuilding the version of myself that did not need Travis or anyone like him. But healing is never linear. It was 6 months later, on a random Tuesday night, when something happened that cracked open everything I thought I had buried. I was scrolling through Instagram. A mutual friend had posted wedding photos. Not just any wedding photos. Travis was in them. In a tuxedo. Smiling. Holding hands with a woman in a white dress. The bride was Vanessa. I sat upright, heart pounding. The caption read, "So happy for Travis and Vanessa." A beautiful end to a complicated love story. My mind went blank. I clicked through the photos obsessively, zooming in on faces, trying to make sense of it. In one of the images, I noticed something small but horrifying. The wedding date etched into a wooden sign behind them, August 20th. I checked my calendar. That was only 2 weeks after our breakup. Only 2 weeks after I had discovered their texts. My hands started shaking again. I stared at the screen and pieced it all together. They had been planning a wedding while he was living with me. While we were splitting grocery bills and sharing toothbrush cups. I was not just the girl he cheated on his girlfriend with, I was the other woman. And I had no idea. The woman who had sent him lingerie photos, who had called him babe and love, was not the affair. I was. And worse? I found out that some of our mutual friends knew. They had attended the wedding, smiled in those photos, liked both our posts while keeping the secret. It was a betrayal so layered it made my chest physically hurt. That night, I did not sleep. I went through old screenshots I had taken of their messages, and something caught my attention that I had missed in the chaos. Vanessa had mentioned being so glad we're finally making it official, even if she's still clinging to you like a parasite. She knew about me. She had known. The woman who became his wife had known I existed. She just did not care. She thought she won. She thought I would disappear quietly. What she did not know was that I had every receipt. Every dirty message, every voice note, every late-night selfie he had sent me while he was allegedly working late. I had videos, calendar invites, and even plane ticket confirmations from weekends we had spent away, while he was supposedly out of town on business. And I had already forwarded it all to a backup email in case anything ever happened. It was not about revenge at first. But when I saw that wedding post, something inside me switched on. I started sharing the screenshots anonymously. Not to ruin their lives, but to warn others. I created an account and uploaded proof of the lies, masking my identity but not the facts. The story spread. People started connecting the dots. His company's HR department got involved because he had used a work trip to cheat. Their families found out. His wife's sister messaged me asking if it was true. I sent her the entire folder. I do not know what happened between them after that. I do not care. What I know is that betrayal has a strange way of revealing not just who others are, but who you are when everything falls apart. I learned that I am not the kind of woman who breaks. I bend, I burn, I bleed, but I do not break. Travis was not my happy ending. He was just the plot twist that made me rewrite the entire story. And I am still writing it. Alone, but never lonely. Whole, even with scars. Stronger, because of what I survived. Update 1. Danielle, 22 years old, thought she had already lived through the worst shock of her life, and that belief was the most dangerous mistake I made after everything with Travis. I genuinely thought the universe had already played its cruelest card and that whatever came next would be smaller, manageable, survivable. I was wrong in a way that still makes my hands go cold when I think about it. 6 months had passed since I walked out of that apartment with my life stuffed into bags and my heart scraped raw. I had rebuilt myself carefully, deliberately, like someone restoring a burned-down house room by room. I was calmer. Stronger. I had stopped checking Travis's name online. I had stopped wondering how his marriage was going. I told myself I was done. That chapter was sealed. I was invited to a family gathering organized by my brothers, a traditional Sunday feast at my older brother's place in Raleigh. Nothing unusual. We did this a few times a year. Loud kitchen, overcooked meat, too many opinions, familiar chaos. My sister and I drove together, laughing about something trivial, windows down, music playing. She seemed normal. Too normal. The house was already full when we arrived. The smell of food hit first, roasted chicken, garlic, something sweet baking in the oven. Everyone hugged, everyone talked over each other. I helped set the table, poured drinks, tried to stay present. For a while, I succeeded. I almost forgot the quiet vigilance I had developed after betrayal. Almost forgot that my body had learned to recognize danger before my mind caught up. At some point, while my sister was elbow-deep in food preparation, her phone started vibrating on the counter. She glanced at it briefly, frowned, and waved her hand dismissively. She said she could not answer because her hands were busy and told me to pick it up and say she would call back. The words landed casually, like nothing. Like history was not about to repeat itself with surgical precision. The moment I lifted her phone, something inside me tightened. I cannot explain why. I answered automatically, intending to keep it short, neutral, done. And then I heard his voice. Travis's voice. Calm. Familiar. The same tone he used when he thought he was in control of a situation. My vision tunneled. I hung up instantly, my pulse roaring in my ears so loudly it drowned out the noise of the room. For a few seconds, I just stood there staring at the screen, my thumb hovering. I told myself not to open anything. I told myself this was a coincidence, that the world was not that cruel. But my body already knew. My hands started shaking the same way they had that Sunday afternoon months ago. Muscle memory. Trauma remembering itself. I unlocked the phone. The contact name was not Travis. It was something harmless. Something ordinary. The same kind of camouflage I had seen before. I opened the message thread and the room around me dissolved. The messages were not ambiguous. They were not flirtatious in a way that could be misunderstood. They were intimate, detailed, layered with familiarity and routine. They spoke of nights together, shared jokes, frustration, longing. I scrolled up slowly, each movement heavier than the last. The dates blurred together until one thing became horrifyingly clear. This correspondence overlapped with everything. With my relationship. With my cohabitation. With my heartbreak. It was the same pattern. The same structure. The same lies dressed up as affection. The same double life. The same man. Different phone. Different woman. I stood there frozen, surrounded by my family laughing, eating, living, completely unaware that my internal world had just cracked open again. My mind refused to process what my eyes were seeing. I kept scrolling, as if at some point the messages would turn into something innocent. They did not. There were photos. Not just of him. Of places. Of moments I recognized. A restaurant Travis had taken me to for my birthday. A hotel we stayed at during a weekend trip. The timestamps lined up with days he told me he was working late or traveling. My chest felt tight, like something was pressing down from the inside. I wanted to scream, but my body would not obey. I wanted to run, but my legs would not move. I felt small again, reduced to that moment months ago when the illusion shattered for the first time. Except this was worse. Infinitely worse. I reached the beginning of the thread, my fingers numb. And that was when I saw the first message. The very first one. The one that made everything click with a clarity so sharp it hurt. It referenced childhood memories. Family jokes. A shared past that went back years, not months. The realization hit me so hard it felt like a physical blow. This was not just another woman. This was not another stranger caught in his web. This was my sister. The same sister who rode with me to this dinner. The same sister who had watched me cry on her couch after the breakup. The same sister who told me I deserved better, who called Travis a traitor, who reassured me that I was strong and brave and right to leave. The same sister whose phone was now burning in my hands with proof that she had been his secret girlfriend all along. 8 months of messages. 8 months of lies. 8 months where she had sat across from me at family dinners, smiling, nodding, playing her role perfectly while sharing a man with me behind my back. I felt the room tilt. The laughter sounded distant, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. I locked the phone and slowly set it back down on the counter, exactly where it had been. No one noticed. No one saw the moment my reality split cleanly in two. I stood there, surrounded by family, knowing that the betrayal I thought had already destroyed me was only the surface layer of something far darker. And in that moment, as I looked toward the kitchen where my sister was laughing, unaware that I now knew everything, I understood that this story was not over. Not even close. Update 2. Danielle, 22 years old, stood in the middle of my brother's kitchen while the world continued spinning like nothing had happened, and I spent the next 30 minutes trapped inside my own head, replaying everything on a loop so violent it made me nauseous. I watched my sister move around the kitchen, laugh, wipe her hands on a towel, accept compliments on the food, act so normal it felt rehearsed. Every memory I had of her over the past year began reorganizing itself into something darker. Every time she defended Travis. Every time she said I was overthinking things. Every time she told me to let go faster, to stop obsessing, to move on. I realized I had been grieving with the very person who helped cause the wound. I sat on the edge of a chair, hands clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms, and ran the timeline over and over. The dates overlapped too cleanly. There were no gaps, no confusion, no room for coincidence. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a double life that had been running parallel to mine, inside my own family, under my own roof during holidays, birthdays, casual dinners. I felt humiliated in a way that went beyond heartbreak. This was violation. This was something rotten hiding behind familiarity. Eventually, the pressure in my chest became unbearable. I could not sit there pretending anymore. I stood up and walked into the kitchen, my legs stiff, my vision narrowed, my voice steady only because shock had numbed everything else. I asked my sister directly about Travis, about the phone, about the messages I had seen. She did not even hesitate. She looked at me with mild annoyance and told me that he was her boyfriend and that they had been together for over a year, like she was stating a boring fact about the weather. The words hit me so hard I had to grab the counter to stay upright. I told her I had broken up with that same man half a year ago, that we had lived together, that I had planned a future with him. For a brief second, she widened her eyes and acted surprised, claimed that was impossible, claimed I must be confused. And then I saw it. The smile. Not wide. Not obvious. Just a slight upward pull at the corner of her mouth that she failed to suppress fast enough. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment. Someone who thought they had already won. Everything snapped. In that instant, the truth rearranged itself with brutal clarity. She had not accidentally overlapped relationships. She had not been deceived. She had known. She had watched me fall apart in real time while carrying on with him behind my back. She had stolen my boyfriend and then stood beside me while I mourned him, pretending to be my support system. The betrayal was so deep it felt surgical. The rage came fast and hot, unlike anything I had ever experienced. My hand started shaking violently. My ears rang. My body moved before my mind could stop it. I grabbed the nearest plate and hurled it across the kitchen. It shattered against the wall, fragments exploding outward. Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted my name. I did not care. I grabbed another dish and threw it, then another, the sound of breaking ceramic echoing everything that had shattered inside me. Years of trust, sisterhood, shared history, all collapsing into noise and wreckage. My parents rushed in, panic on their faces, yelling for me to stop, telling me I was acting crazy, telling me to calm down. No one asked why. No one asked what had pushed me there. They grabbed my arms, pulled me back, told me I was ruining the evening, embarrassing the family, overreacting. I remember my mother telling me I needed sleep, that I was emotional, that I was imagining things. My father opened the door and told me to leave, to cool off, to come back when I could behave like an adult. I stood there shaking, surrounded by broken dishes and broken loyalty, realizing that I was being expelled from the house for reacting to a betrayal that should have shattered everyone else instead. My sister stood behind them, silent now, eyes lowered, still wearing that faint trace of satisfaction she tried to hide. I grabbed my bag with hands that felt disconnected from my body and walked out into the night. The air outside was cold, sharp, grounding and cruel. I got into my car and slammed the door, my breath coming in short, furious bursts. I drove home on pure adrenaline, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white, my mind replaying her smile over and over until it burned itself into memory. By the time I reached my apartment, I was shaking with rage I could not contain, fury layered with grief, humiliation, and something darker that had just begun to take shape. I slammed the door behind me and stood alone in the silence, knowing with terrifying certainty that I was done being quiet, done being forgiving, and done letting people who betrayed me decide how my story would end. Update 3. Danielle, 22 years old, learned the hard way that betrayal does not end with the person who commits it first, it spreads outward, infecting everyone who chooses comfort over truth. The days after that night blurred together in a haze of anger, exhaustion, and disbelief. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my sister's phone screen, her messages, her smile. I replayed the dinner over and over, dissecting every second, every reaction, every moment where someone could have stopped and asked what actually happened. No one did. My parents called a few days later, not to ask if I was okay, not to understand, but to tell me that I had crossed a line, that I had embarrassed the family, that I needed to apologize to my sister for my behavior. I tried to explain calmly, carefully, laying out the timeline, the messages, the overlap, the proof that lived in my memory with cruel precision. They brushed it off like a bad dream, told me I was emotional, told me I had already gone through a breakup and was projecting my pain onto my sister. They said they did not believe that she would ever do something like that to me. That was when I asked them a simple question, one that cracked the entire illusion wide open. I asked if they had ever met my sister's boyfriend. Their answer came easily and without hesitation. They had not. They said it did not matter, that they did not need to meet him, that it was none of their business. And in that moment, something inside me went very quiet. Because I understood then that they did not want the truth. They did not want to see it. Accepting what I was telling them would mean acknowledging that their family was not as solid as they pretended it was, and that was unacceptable to them. That was the moment I stopped trying. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply pulled back. I stopped answering calls. I stopped replying to messages. I muted family group chats and let holidays pass without explanation. I especially cut off my sister completely. No confrontation. No closure. No dramatic final message. Just absence. Silence where I used to be. If she expected guilt or apology or reconciliation, she would never get it. I was done feeding people who survived on my forgiveness. The weight of it all hit me weeks later, quietly, when the adrenaline wore off. It was not just a boyfriend I lost. It was the idea that my family was a safe place. It was the assumption that blood meant loyalty. It was the belief that my pain would matter to the people who raised me. That realization hollowed me out in a way heartbreak never could. I started questioning everything. Every childhood memory. Every time my sister had competed with me, undermined me, minimized me. I wondered how long she had been capable of something like this, and how long I had refused to see it. When I finally told my friends the full story, every detail, they were stunned. I watched their faces change as the truth sank in. Disbelief turned into anger on my behalf. They asked how I was still standing. They told me they would have burned bridges immediately. Some of them cried for me. That was when I realized how deeply this had damaged me, because strangers to my blood showed me more empathy than my own family ever did. My mental state took a serious hit. I stopped trusting people easily. I flinched at small things. I caught myself questioning motives, rereading messages, searching for hidden meanings that were not there. Therapy became less of an option and more of a necessity. I had to grieve two losses at once, the man I thought I would marry and the sister I thought would never betray me. One was painful. The other was devastating. But something else happened too, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. Without my family's constant judgment and dismissal, I began to breathe again. The noise quieted. I built routines that did not include walking on eggshells or proving my reality to people determined to deny it. I leaned into friendships that felt safe, where I was believed without having to provide evidence. I learned that walking away was not weakness. It was survival. I do not know how long my sister's relationship lasted. I do not know if Travis ever told her the full truth, or if she even cared. I stopped checking. Their lives ceased to exist in my world. I chose myself instead. I chose peace over proximity. Distance over damage. Silence over constant invalidation. The story did not end with an apology or a dramatic family reconciliation. It ended with clarity. With boundaries. With me understanding that sometimes the greatest revenge is not exposure or confrontation, but the refusal to remain accessible to people who hurt you and feel entitled to your forgiveness. I lost a boyfriend. I lost a sister. I lost my parents in the way that matters most. But I did not lose myself. And in the end, that was the only thing worth protecting.